You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 104, BMI, the fat spectrum, and who is classed as fat. Let's do it!
Perfect!
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. What's up, rat bastards? Hello, cowards. What's the word, baby birds? Hello, my sweet summer children. What it do, baby? Hello, friends and enemies. What's up, demons? It's me, ya boy. Listen up, fives. A 10 is speaking. That's me. Reminder of them gender-neutral greetings. Did you enjoy them? They're on my Instagram page. Let me see if have I got lipstick on my teeth. Don't think so. Good. Hello. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get through this podcast. To tell you why is I went and had a COVID test. I went and had a COVID test a couple of hours ago. I've got a cough and a headache, and I am trying to be a good citizen, and so I looked it up and was like, if I've got a little bit of cough, I don't think it's COVID because is my mind reading, because I'm so well versed in what it feels like. Yeah, and so like with a cough and a headache, you need to get tested. Even if you just have a little bit of a cough, you need to get tested. Apparently, I didn't know that. I thought, oh, maybe if you had a cough and the cough was like this or that, and you had this and that or whatever. But just a symptom of cough means that you need to get tested. And if you have a headache and then like one other symptom, I can't remember what it was, that means you need to get tested. Anyway, went to the clinic, walked straight in. Well, delayed slightly because there was a guy at the talking to the I think it was the lead of the clinic, who was like, oh well, if I get this then I'm gonna get chips in my arms, and basically an anti-vaxxer who was like, listen, I don't want to. And yeah, so that was interesting hearing this person's theory. So yeah, so I had a little tinkle of a cotton bud tinkle in my nose, tinkle in my brain, tinkling into my spinal column. That's not what it does. Don't go get scared if you've never had a COVID test. That's not what happens. They just stick the thing in. And apparently there is a way as well. So you don't do the swab. You can do like your saliva or something. It's mainly for kids, but at this clinic you could have the option of, but only if you hadn't eaten. And so they said, are you all right with a swab? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me that fucking swab into my brain, see if I missed some COVID. And because I'm vaccinated, if I do have COVID, then I'm probably going to be fine, because that is what the vaccination does. It means that your symptoms are going to be way less severe than someone who is not vaccinated, and obviously harder to get, if you were vaccinated. So hence why I'm like, I don't think I have. But in the 2 days until I get my test, my friend is very kindly looking after Doogie, so I can isolate for the 2 days. Doogie the dog. So they're going to come around and pick him up in a couple of hours. So thank you, friends. All right, so today's episode is about the BMI, the fat spectrum, and who is classed as fat. You know what? I've spoken about the BMI before, but I've never kind of like titled an episode about the BMI or the fat spectrum or who's classed as fat. And I was like, I need to title an episode so people can easily find it instead of having to listen to 100 episodes to see the bits and bobs I've spoken about it. So I thought I'd just have one episode that is here for your brain. And also you might not have heard those episodes where I've spoken about these types of things. So the BMI is racist. Don't know if you knew. You probably know that the BMI is fucked up. So it's fucked up, and it's not. It's not helpful. And anyway, so let me go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about the BMI, and I'm going to tell you about basically why from the BMI, the language that I use to describe fat bodies, why going from that, because they use the classification of human bodies as normal weight and all of that type of stuff, the O words, and then going into language, and then going into categories, the fat spectrum, categories of fatness, why we have that, why that's helpful, and work out whether you're a fat person or you're not a fat person. Because a lot of people say to me, like, I'm not sure, am I fat? And they're genuinely unsure because I guess sometimes people are like, they feel like they're definitely fat, but they aren't actually fat. But it's almost like they need to, I don't know, or they are fat, and it's comforting knowing that they are. Anyway, whatever the reasons behind it. So let's talk about the body mass index, and this is where we get the O words. I'm going to say them, quote unquote, overweight, quote unquote, obese. And then someone very helpfully said, hey, let's just not call them obese. Let's go in with some morbid obesity, because let's just increase the stigma there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. Let's help fat people really fucking hate themselves and help other people hate fat people even more. So that's where the O words come from. And the BMI, you're probably very familiar with it, but just in case you're not, the BMI is a number that is generated by dividing someone's weight in pounds by their height squared and multiplying the result by 703. Sounds very scientific, doesn't it? Must be true. So you think you know what I'm going to say. It's not. The BMI is derived from a simple maths, as we say in the UK, math, as people might say in North America, math formula. It was devised in the 1830s by Lambert Adolphe Jacques Quetelet, a Belgian astronomer, mathematician, statistician, and sociologist. Oh, okay. So not a weight scientist or a doctor. Good old Lambert was an astronomer, a mathematician. Lambert was like, do you know what? I would like to know about population sizes. I'm just curious. What is the average weight that humans weigh? And he wasn't like, right, what are the weights that humans generally weigh? We should be falling into those categories. That was not his thinking. And good old Lambert was obviously a white cis man, and so he was like, okay, let's study the population, the mass population, but make sure that we only collect it from European cis male people. Presumably they were cis. This is the 1830s, so Yeah. There were obviously non-binary and trans folks existed, but they probably didn't have the words for it. Well, white people didn't have the words for it because indigenous cultures absolutely did have the words for it. But anyway, this is white people fucking up the world even more as normal. What else are we doing? So Lambert collected the data from white European men, and it was never meant to be used as an indicator for health. And he even said, listen up here, motherfuckers. He said, now, we've looked at how much white European men weigh. This is not going to be a good kind of benchmark to categorize bodies as healthy or unhealthy. Or, it's just, this is how much people tend to weigh right now. And a reminder, this is from the 1830s. The 1830s. Do you think the body sizes have changed since then? Yeah. It was almost 200 years ago. Jesus, listen, we're almost, oh my God, we're going in 2022. This is almost 200 years ago, 1830s, 200 years ago. Have human bodies changed? Yes, because marvelous access to food, and a lot of people have access to food. Great, amazing, and lots of different things are going on. Big reason why people's bodies changed is there's a kind of spike during the time that diets started to become a popular mechanism for trying to get people to become thin. What did they do? Made people bigger. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being bigger, but anyway, this is a quote from Christine Byrne, who writes for the Huffington Post, that, what is the title of this? The BMI is racist and useless. Here's how to measure health instead, I think it is. Here's how to measure health instead. Yeah. So, quote from Christine Byrne. I'll link to this article. Show notes are at 104, FierceFatA/104. Okay. Although Quetelet noticed that it was a population-level tool and not meant to be used on individuals, physiologist Ansel Keys reintroduced the calculation in 1972 as the body mass index. So by the way, it wasn't called the BMI before. It was called the Quetelet index or something like that. No, not Quetelet something. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's shit. And you remember Ansel Keys? Do you remember Ansel Keys from a few episodes back? The Psychology of Starvation. Ansel Keys was the one that who led the tests on that year-long experiment starving men in World War II. He was that fella. There's lots of things around him where it's not so great. So Ansel Keys reintroduced the calculation in 1972, and it has since been adopted by the medical community as a way to measure individual health. Continuing, while the BMI has countless failings as a reliable tool, and so this is continuing on, they're basically saying, Tom Cruise would be classed as the O word, obese. Tom Cruise would be classed as obese. I kind of have a problem with this. There's something that rubs me the wrong way when we say, well, hang on, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he would be classed as morbidly obese, and therefore this is wrong, because we kind of say we're saying, look at this person, clearly they're healthy, and so it's wrong. And why are we having to use people who have bodies that are seen as desirable to say that this is wrong? We don't know if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is healthy, because just from the way he looks. Because we don't know anyone's health status just because. And so it's kind of like saying, well, you can't say that it's a helpful tool, because clearly these people are, fit, quote unquote. These people are muscly, quote unquote. This is a Hollywood film actor. So they clearly is broken. So that using that example, it just rubs me the wrong way. But I see it all the time, and I think maybe it is a good way to convince people of, well, if Tom Cruise or Dwayne the Rock Johnson are classed as obese, then clearly then it's fucked up. There's like a bajillion reasons why it's fucked up outside of that. Continuing from this article, which is good, by the way, this article, I'm kind of criticizing that point, but so while the BMI has countless failings as a reliable tool, racism is chief among them. Exactly, said Sabrina Strings, an assistant professor at the University of California, Irvine. So if you haven't read Sabrina's book or listened to the audio, get it out from your local library, buy it or whatever. Sabrina talks about the connection between fat phobia and racism. So this is what Sabrina's saying. It is racist. It is also sexist. To use mostly white men within your study population and then try to extrapolate that and create norms and expectations for women and people of colour, Strings told HuffPost. They have not been included in the initial clinical analysis, and therefore their actual health outcomes cannot be determined by these findings. In short, the way the BMI is being used is unscientific because of its origins and the homogeneous population it was created from. Continuing, weight standards have long been used to perpetuate racism. In her book, Fear in the Black Body, Strings outlines the history of body standards and the ways in which thinness was used to uphold white supremacy as recent, or superiority, as recently as the early 20th century. So she describes how the thin bodies of Northern and Western Europeans were upheld as the ideal, while the often larger bodies of Eastern and Southern Europeans, as well as Africans, were considered signs of their inferiority. All this was before we really knew anything about the still blurry and confounding relationship between weight and health. The modern BMI and its categories, underweight, normal, overweight, and obese, have inherited much of that racism. Even after all of the work that I've done and the work that I've read about the creation of these weight categories, I've long wondered, who is this even based on? String says. And then she mentions the normal range, what it is. I'm not going to mention that number here. This normal BMI category that they arbitrarily came up with, what is that even about? There's something so strange about that. I feel like almost certain that they were not researching people in places like Samoa, where people can be healthier at much heavier weights. There are so many ramifications of trying to create one normative table for the diverse people of the world, Strings added. The whole thing is preposterous. Love that word. I need to say that more. Preposterous. It's a good one, isn't it? Isn't it a good one? Also, there's another book. I've bought it. It's on my stand to read, which is Belly of the Beast. Belly of the Beast. I'm just Googling it now. Belly of the Beast. The Politics of Anti-Fatness as Anti-Blackness. So this is by Deshaun L. Harrison. I've probably mentioned that before, but this book, I probably mentioned in the last couple of episodes because it came out in the last month, and it's exploring that intersection too, which I think is really important, and I can't wait to read it. And I think that you should read it too, if you wanna, if reading is your thing. Okay, so we've got these numbers from 200 years ago, when bodies were different, using white European men. And then Ansel Keys was like, yes, I'm gonna bring it back in. Come on, girls, let's be dicks to people. Let's shame them for their way. And all of his girls are like, yes, let's do it. And so then, in 1998, the quote ideal/healthy BMI was changed overnight. The committee within the World Health Organization changed it, and the committee was consisted of people who are directly linked to diet companies or diet pill pharmaceutical companies. And they were lobbied by people like, I think it was like the head of Weight Watchers at the time, to change the categories. Why? And Sabrina Strings says, why do we have these numbers? These numbers are arbitrary. You know why we have these numbers of, I don't know, 20 to 25 is this one category, 25 to 30 is another, whatever. Those five increments, they are 5, not because of science, because 5 is easy to remember. 5 is easy to... So it's not like this thing that has been used for years and years and years, that is such an important part of how we've understood weight and health. It's not like they just picked the numbers out of their assholes. Oh, what's that? They did? Yeah, they did. They just was like, do you know, fuck it. Let's just make 30 this and let's make 25 that. And then the World Health Organization and the NIH were like, oh, do you know what? It'd be really cool if we changed it. And, you know, the diet company people were like, fuck yes, let's do it. And overnight they changed the categories. And so that 29 million people in the US overnight went from being a quote unquote healthy weight to being an unhealthy weight, or from being overweight to obese. Sounds like, does someone have a solution for that? What's that? Diet companies are going to help you become thin with their diets? Well, that's very lucky. Oh, that's very lucky. And as well, insurance companies, they were rubbing their hands with glee because now they can charge people who are not a quote unquote normal weight more premiums, or even deny insurance to people if they are what they esteem as too fat. And so now many experts agree that the BMI is pretty unscientific and doesn't really tell us much about anything. Sometimes it might be good for working out medicine dosage, but even then, I've heard anesthesiologists say, actually, you know what? No, we don't really use it. And I've, you know, obviously some say different, but it just is not. It should be phased out as a way to measure health, because it simply doesn't. It doesn't measure health at all, and is really fucked up. And so continuing on that, from the, you know, the words that they use to describe bodies with the BMI, the words normal weight, overweight, obese are I mean to start with, normal weight, it's saying that there is a normal way for a human body to be, and that is the correct way for a human body that should be. Literally, overweight means that you're over the right weight, and that's not true. Humans come in all sizes. No weight is the correct weight. If we all ate the same food and exercised the same, bodies will still be a variety of sizes, because, you know, that's just what humans do. And the word obese is even more fucked up. So not only does it also presume that you are over the right weight, the word means, its origins means eaten until gotten fat. Eaten until fat. Are people who are fat all fat because they were just like, oh, I'm just going to eat loads of food and I'm just going to become fat and this is it? Like, no. No. We know that people are fat for literally hundreds of different reasons. It's a really complex issue. The O words, overweight and obese, it pathologizes fat bodies. It makes it that fat bodies are presumed to be diseased and wrong and need to be fixed. And in, was it 2012 in the US, fat was categorized as a disease, a lifelong condition. Even though it's like one of the only things where having this condition, quote unquote, everyone's outcome is completely different, right? And the cure for this condition, there's no cure, even though that's not what, you know, we're told. Just lose weight. If I hear someone using the word O words, I know that they're not safe. I know that they think my body is wrong. And within fat positive communities, the O words are seen as slurs. And a slur, just in the definition of the word slur, an insulting or disparaging remark or innuendo, a shaming or degrading effect. Yeah. Are we shamed and degraded with those words? Yeah. Is it insulting and disparaging? Yeah. So let's put them in the bin. Let's put them in the bin where they belong. And let's, when we're old people, be like, I remember the days when people used to say, normal weight, overweight. This is me when I'm 120. And then, children are going to be like, really? And I'm like, yes. We even use the word obese. Isn't that so funny and weird? And the kids are going to be like, oh my God. Yeah. So why the word fat? For a lot of people, the word fat is explosively, powerfully painful, and it used to be for me too, because what I understood the word fat to mean was lazy, greedy, unattractive, just an absolute piece of shit. And so if someone said fat, just call yourself fat, it's fine. Fat's a neutral to scripture. I'd be like, well, I don't want to, because I don't want to be seen as lazy and unhealthy and unattractive and all those type of stuff. So that's a lot of power behind a word. Why? And really, what the word fat is saying is someone who is fat. Really, that's what it is. It's a neutral word, the same way as black hair or brown eyes or whatever. It's not inherently a bad thing. We've obviously tied meaning to it. But there is no negative meanings behind that word in reality. Of course, you can call yourself anything you like. If you love the O words and you just think, yeah, I feel so empowered by these words, do it. Listen, I'm not the word police. You do what you want, right? Do whatever it is that you feel good describing yourself. As a society, I think if we're moving towards more words that cause the least amount of harm, I think that is helpful, right? And so I consider fat to be reclaiming the word. It is the rejection of the BMI. It is rejection of stigmatizing language for me. Also, thinking about euphemism, so some people don't like to say the word fat, and so they want to say fluffy or thick or curvy or zaftig or voluptuous or Rubenesque. When we use euphemisms, that can imply that we don't want to, we're skirting around the idea. We're trying to make something that seems bad, something that is bad seem better. There's nothing wrong with being fat, right? And so we don't need to use these euphemisms. Again, if you like those words, go for it. Do what you want. But a lot of people in the fat community see them as kind of trying to make something that's bad better. And fat is not bad, so we don't need to make it better by using euphemisms, by using fluffy and soft words or cutesy words. And again, if you like those, go ahead. Go for it. Go for it. Other words that you can use which are not euphemisms would be things like larger body, higher weight, bigger body, to a certain extent plus size, although plus size can also be seen as a euphemism, and also what is plus size. So bigger body, higher weight, larger person. There's also some people say person of size, people of size. That kind of edges into person first language. So let's talk about person first language. So I want to give you a quote from Reagan Chastain, and Reagan writes, person first language. First, a bit of background. Person/people first language, quote, brackets PFL, started as a tool in the disability community. The idea that putting the person before their illness or disability helps to decrease stigma. For example, a person with a disability rather than a disabled person. There is a lot of controversy within that community around this, and I recommend reading work from people in that community to gain a better understanding. And Reagan links to a post from The Body Is Not an Apology, written by Rachel Cohen-Rottenberg, that says the problem with person first language. And so one little quote from here is, see both the person and the disability, because there is nothing dehumanizing or shameful about a disability. That's a little quote from that article, but let's continue with what Reagan is saying. This became pertinent to higher weight people because organizations that claim to advocate against weight stigma but are in fact fully funded by those who sell dangerous and expensive weight loss drugs and surgeries began pushing it as a part of a larger campaign to pathologize higher weight bodies. So there are a lot of organizations who say they are for fat people, to help fat people, but actually what they're advocating for is eugenics. They're saying fat people need to lose weight. So we're here for fat people, and here's a little clue for you. Any organization that has the O words in the title, huge red flag. Giant waving red flag covered in sparklers, because there's already they're pathologizing people with that word, any O word. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I know there is in the autistic community, in the autism community, there's organizations and they use like the puzzle pieces logo, and what they're trying to do is they are trying to reduce the instances of autism versus celebrating neurodiversity. And so autism activists are like, listen, don't support those organizations, because they basically just want to erase us, which is eugenics. And it's the same with these people who are companies, organizations, not-for-profits, who use the O word, and it's like, just from the beginning, we know what you're doing. What they're doing is trying to make fat people not fat anymore. I mean, what? Hello? You're causing harm. You're doing the opposite thing that you should be doing. Anyway, so continuing, they began suggesting rather than quote unquote overweight or obese, it's less stigmatizing to use a language like, so we're going back to, in case you forgot what the thing about person first language. So these places, this is another thing. They say, listen, saying someone is obese is rude. Saying a person suffering from obesity, that's what we need to do. Versus being like, holy shit, why are we even using the O words? Holy shit, why are we trying to get fat people to be thin? Holy shit, are we engaging in something pretty fucked up? No, they don't do that. Let me just read that again. So they began suggesting that rather than overweight or obese, it is less stigmatizing to use language like the woman was affected by obesity instead of the woman was obese. The man with obesity was on a bus instead of the man on the bus was very obese. They then used this concept to bolster their case for insurance coverage for their, quote, treatments. In truth, this language actually increases stigma because person-first language is not being suggested for other adjectives that describe our bodies. Nobody is advocating that we say the woman was affected by thinness or the man with brunetteness was on the bus. The use of person-first language suggests that accurately describing a higher weight person's body is so awful that we have to find a way to talk around it. It also shifts the blame from weight stigma to larger bodies. When someone says the woman affected by obesity, it suggests that the problem is her body size and not the weight stigma and lack of accommodation that is actually harming her. This also goes for the concept that you are not fat, you have fat. Like the you are not fingernails, you have fingernails. That one just fucking eye rolls me. You're not fat, you have fat. It's just so, you're so fucked up. Again, notice how this isn't applied to other body descriptors. Nobody says, you're not tall, you just have height. Or, don't call yourself brunette, you just have brown hair. The suggestion that we need to talk around body size in higher weight people, and in a way that we don't in thinner people, is in and of itself stigmatizing. Thank you, Reagan Chastain, for that beautiful little synopsis on person first language. Again, if you want to use person first language to describe yourself, go for it. Just giving you the information. Okay. All right, so let's move into the fat spectrum, or fategories, as some folks like to say. And Linda from Fluffy Kitten Party in the last couple of months has come out with an updated version of her blog post, which is small fat, understanding categories, understanding the small fat fragility and the fat spectrum, and originally written in like 2016, updated. Also, Ash from the Fat Lip is someone who is basically the person who has really pushed the knowledge on this forward. So I want to give you a quote from Fluffy Kitten Party, her post, a little introduction to what a lot of people say when we talk about the fat spectrum or categorizing fat bodies or fategories, is they say, well, we don't want the BMI. Why would we want to categorize fat bodies? We don't want the BMI, which categorizes bodies. So why are we doing this? So let me read you. Isn't fat enough of a descriptor? Honestly, no, not really. Fatness, like many things, exists on a spectrum. Over time, as fat activism has become increasingly intersectional, as communities aim to center the most marginalized in their ranks, people have developed labels that describe where they fall on the fat spectrum. Also, by the way, with the BMI, the thoughts behind it is that the closer to a, quote, normal weight you are, the better, the healthier, the more, attractive and all that sort of type of shit. With the fat spectrum, there's nothing like that. It recognizes the amount of privilege someone has. And now for folks who are kind of struggling on the idea of what privilege is not something that you can, you're born with privilege a lot of the times. Privilege is mostly unearned. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just is what it is. And so if you have thin privilege, it doesn't mean that you need to go and like jump off a cliff or something because you're a bad person because you happen to have a smaller body. It's just recognizing that your life is not more difficult because you have a thin body, right? Your life is not more difficult because you have a thin body. Whereas someone with a bigger body, their life is more difficult. And someone like me, I'm a medium fat person. My life is way easier than it would be for someone who is a super fat person or a large fat person. For example, there is one store that I can shop in Vancouver. A medium fat person, a large fat person, an infinity fat person, and a super fat person would have zero. And that's just one example. I can go in and in restaurant chairs, I can fit if I need to. I will ask for a different chair often, but I can squeeze myself in if I need to and be uncomfortable. Some people will literally not have a seating option at all. And so when I describe my experiences as a fat person, I need to recognize my privilege, that my experience living in the world can be a lot different from someone who has a bigger body, And so I can't say I speak for all fat people and I know what it's like to experience that. I don't. for, and it doesn't mean that I'm bad, doesn't mean that you're bad. It's just the way it is. Okay, so continuing on with this. These labels or categories essentially attempt to create a shorthand that quickly and efficiently describes where a person is on the spectrum of fatness and their experiences living in the world in those fat bodies. It's a difficult thing to attempt because size oppression touches so many areas of fat people's lives, and these conversations can be very nuanced. No system of labels is going to be perfect or accurately reflect every single person's lived experience, but these terms are commonly used in fat communities. Okay, so what are the terms? I'm going to give, kind of not even, outside of the fat spectrum too. Let me give you a couple of the terms outside of the fat spectrum, just in case you're not familiar with them. First is straight size. So when I say straight size, the reason why a lot of us use a word, the term straight size versus thin or skinny or not fat, is that a lot of times when someone who isn't fat, they don't identify as thin, right? A lot of people who are not fat don't identify as thin, because when we think of someone who is thin, we think of someone who is very thin. When we think about someone who's skinny, we think of someone who is very small, right? And so someone can be straight-sized and not be experiencing marginalization due to their fatness, but also not feel thin. The reality is they are, but some people want to make a distinction between someone who is very small versus someone who is small, And so I did an episode on this maybe 7 episodes ago. It was called "What's with this mid-size thing?" And so the next category is mid-size. And so a mid-size person is they're not thin, but they're not fat. So they're probably a size 12, 14 US. In the UK, that's 14, 16. Or in men's clothes or in non-binary sizes, that's probably a medium or a large or smaller. So this person is definitely straight-sized, okay? If they're wearing a size 16 UK or 14 US or a medium or large, they're straight-sized. And so this trend has been going on. I did a whole episode on it. This trend has been going on kind of a lot around TikTok recently. It's not a new thing. It's been around for many years now. And a lot of fat people hate it because it's some people who are mid-sized thinks that we shouldn't be highlighting fat bodies because fat bodies have had their time. That's not true. Fat bodies have never had their time. And we shouldn't be highlighting thin bodies. Instead, we should be celebrating mid-sized bodies. And actually, mid-sized bodies are very well represented in everywhere, especially in plus-size clothing. Holy shit, because they get the mid-size models to come in and model the freaking plus-size clothing and pin it at the back. Many companies do that. Looking at you, Torrid. The models are fucking thin. Thin. You would never see a medium fat, large fat, anyone like that, modeling these clothes. And it's not just Torrid, it's lots of different companies. Anyway, so, and then some people say that it's good to recognize that there are people who don't feel thin even though they are thin. And it's important to recognize that and say that there is a space for them online. And here's where you can shop, sort of thing. So, I mean, for me, I'm kind of indifferent about it. Whatever, if you want to, if that feels good to you, use it. Also recognize that you have a shit ton of privilege. So next, let's move on to a small fat person. So a small fat person is a US size 18, a UK size 20 and lower. So that might be an XL or a 2X in different clothes, and they generally can find clothes that fit in mainstream brands. There's lots of choices, not as much if compared to a straight size person. Okay, next category is medium fat, and a medium fat is US size 20 to 24, a UK 22 to 26, or a 2X or 3X. You can shop at some mainstream brands, but mostly plus brands and online. For me, yeah. I'd say, yeah, there are, I guess, like, so for me, I can go to Old Navy, because I'd be like a 3X. Yeah, I'd be a 3X at Old Navy. And so that is a mainstream brand. Okay, next category. And obviously, we're talking about clothing here. A lot of times clothing is used as a point of reference for accessibility, because clothing is in categories anyway of sizes. It kind of recognizes that. But also, this is not perfect, because you could be one size in the bottom, a different size on the top. You could be a straight size in the bottom or the top, and a plus size in the opposite, in the other. And also, a lot of this is focused on women's clothing, and not recognizing maybe men's or non-binary clothing as much. Anyway, so just a little critique there. Okay, next, so that was medium fat. That's a 20 to 24 in the US, 22 to 26 UK. A super fat person, and so the term super fat was created at the 2008 No Lose conference. I would love to go to a fat conference, wouldn't you? Oh, or also at this super fat, also at this level, you can also use the word infinifat, which was coined by Ash from the Fat Lip podcast. And a super fat or infinifat is a 26 to 32. That is in US size, UK a 28 to 34. And that would be a 4X or a 5X. And they would wear the highest sizes of plus sizes. So the biggest sizes in plus size stores. And can only shop online, because there ain't going to be any brick and mortar places that will carry 4X and 5X. Obviously there are maybe a few, but it's not like you're going to go walk into your mall and find them. Especially if it's kind of 5X, because a lot of and Saucy West, go follow, as in it's Saucy as you would spell saucy but with an E, Saucy West, who is doing an incredible job of highlighting the fact that most plus brands end at a 3X. And even when we say 3X, they're what we call junior plus sizes. So that means they ain't a 3X. They're like a 1X. And so they're like, oh, we're so inclusive, we go to 3X. And then it's like, oh, I'm a size 16 and that, I can't fit into the 3X. And so is it a 3X or is it a size 16? You know what I mean? And so Saucy West is doing an incredible job campaigning, asking for these companies who for years and years and years have said, we can't make any more plus sizes. Like, we already go to a 2X, which is the size 14. So what else do you want from me? We're so inclusive. We dress every body size. Everybody is welcome at our store, unless you're like a 4X or above, then you then go away. And the hashtag that Saucy created is Fight for Inclusivity. Also, she originally had another hashtag which was Fat and Free. So go and look for Fight for Inclusivity for a list of stores that do actually carry more inclusive sizes. And actually some stores have come back and said, you're right, shit, thank you, Saucy. We are going to be expanding our ranges, which is incredible. I mean, clothing, it's a very basic thing. We need it. We can't go outside, and being excluded from affordable, fashion-forward pieces is not okay. And even to be able to get anything, your hands on anything, is not okay. Yeah, so So that is super fat or infinifat. So that is a size 26 to 32 US, UK 28 to 34, or a 4X or 5X, or higher. So that is kind of like infinifat. The term infinifat, Ash talks about how it's like infinity, right? It's kind of size 26 onwards. There's another category, which is death fat, and this is coined by Leslie Kinzel, and that is a size 34 and higher, or 36 UK. That's a 6X plus. And so that's very hard to find anything that fits, often requires custom sizing. Also, this term can be used to describe any size. So anyone could say, like, oh, I'm a deaf fat, because some people say that it describes someone who is bigger than an infinifat. And some people say it's just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek phrase and no size is ascribed to it. So something to recognize here as well, there's no kind of head of fattiness, there's no leader, there's no one person who says this is definitely what it is. Some people like these categorizations because it helps us understand privilege, and it helps us make sure that infinifat or super fat people are given, are not left out of the conversation, because a lot of the times when we think about fat positivity, it's people who look like me, right? It's people who look like me or smaller, and so I'm a medium fat. A lot of times it is smaller fat people who are leading the conversations. Because of fat phobia, it's easier to hear messages like this from someone my size or smaller versus someone who is bigger, because in society we view people who are the very fattest as the most unappealing and unpalatable, because of fat phobia, right? And that's not okay. And so a lot of people appreciate this spectrum, to recognize that, and there's no kind of you're better or worse because you're bigger or smaller. And some people don't like it, and that's okay. If it works for you, use it. If it doesn't, don't. Now, moving on to the final piece in today's episode of am I fat? As in, well, not me, I am fat. Are you fat? And so a lot of people say to me, Victoria, am I fat? Am I fat? And, because, you might fall into having a straight size, bottoms and plus size top, or plus size top and straight size, or the opposite, straight size top and plus size, whatever. Am I fat? Do I get to call myself fat? Am I just co-opting a term and taking it for mine? And actually, I'm a mid-sized person. Should I be using it? Well, I've got a question for you to consider. Am I fat? When asking that. Have you faced marginalization because the world isn't made for you? If you have faced marginalization because the world isn't made for you, made for your body, for example, fitting into a chair at the theatre, being able to buckle your seatbelt on an aeroplane, being able to walk into the mall and find somewhere to shop. If you've experienced marginalization because of your body size, and it's not feeling like people would prefer that you were thinner, because that is the case for most sizes, right? Most sizes, most people feel that the world, or a romantic partner or whoever, would prefer them if they were thinner, because we live in a fat phobic society. So it's not the feeling of it, it's the have you experienced marginalization. And that's not, I don't want to date you because you're a size 14 and I only want to date size 10s. That's obviously fucked up. But is the world made for you? And I think that's a question to ask. And I mean, again, I've said this a million times. You can use whatever words you want to use to describe yourself. But one thing to consider is that if you are a straight size person and you're using the word fat to describe yourself, that can be really fucked up. That can be really fucked up, because it's like fat people will know what I'm talking about. Your really small friend is like, oh my God, I'm so fat. Oh, I'm huge. Oh, I'm a whale. And they're not. And so what they're saying is fat is unattractive. Ugh, I'm so scared of being fat. Ugh, what if I am fat? Ugh, I need you to reassure me that I'm not fat. Especially because you're a fat friend and I want you to tell me that I'm beautiful. It's not kind, it's not helpful, and it's not aiming to be progressive, which is what we're trying to do. And we're all gonna fuck up. I mean, Jesus. I've been, most of my life I was a giant bell end, so Lord Jesus, oh my God. So yeah. All right, so I think that I've covered most of everything. And again, like, this is imperfect. This is not, I'm not speaking for all fat people and all that type of jazz. But there's some like kind of overviews for you. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to email me, send me or on the podcast page, the show notes. There will be a form for you to fill in to get questions asked, which is actually the best way. That's the best way. I say email me, but actually fill out that form, because then I'll go look at that form once in a while and then answer the questions, Whereas an email will get lost. It will get lost. Also, by the way, I'm going back and I found a tool for transcriptions, which is something that I can afford to do now. Previously, to get transcriptions for your podcast, for me, I was doing it for a couple of months and I just couldn't keep up the cost of it, because it was like $400 US a month plus, and then the admin behind that, getting it on, and so $400 plus, and so that was cost prohibitive for me. But now a new solution, someone shared with me this new solution called Otter AI. Otter, I think it's OTT, Otter.ai, and it's like, I think you can get, let's see, pricing plans in case you have something that you want to get transcribed, or you can kind of hook it in with your Zoom and have live captions and live transcript. How cool is that? Because obviously I want to make things as accessible as possible, but you can actually, look, there's a free plan, and then Pro is only $8.33 US a month. Actually, that's billing annually. $12.99 US a month, or business is $30 US a month. Like, yeah, 1,000,000,000%. I'm going to do that. And so also we're going to go back and so all episodes moving forward, we're going to be doing that, and also going back through all the old episodes to make sure that they all have transcripts. So yeah, just an FYI there. Okay, so thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And look, do you know what? I don't think I've got COVID. I survived talking for an hour. I didn't die. What do you think? Do you think next week I'll tell you? I'll tell you if I have COVID or not. Fingers crossed. Okay. See you later. Crocodile, stay fierce, fatty. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.